When a plane crashes,
What the hell?
the shock is profound. But when two planes are found in the wreckage,
The runway was occupied, and that's something that should never happen.
the extent of the tragedy is multiplied. It's up to investigators
727's wing sliced right through the fuselage.
to solve multiple mysteries.
Why would he lie?
What's that?
My God.
Three collisions raise the same question. How did two planes end up on the same runway
Oh, no.
at the same time?
An airplane to be on an active runway when they shouldn't. Somebody did something wrong.
Detroit Metropolitan Airport. In the tower,
Man, I don't think I've ever seen fog this bad.
controllers are dealing with fog that's blanketed the entire airport. It's so thick they can't see the planes they're guiding.
Northwest 299, ready to taxi.
Northwest 299, Metro Ground, taxi to runway 3 center via Oscar 6, Fox, and X-ray.
The ground controller is directing Northwest Flight 299 to the runway. It's a Boeing 727 bound for Memphis with 146 passengers on board.
Only way they could know where the aircraft were on the airport was to have the pilots give them positions as to where they were.
Northwest 299, what's your position now?
Okay, we just turned down onto X-ray 299.
Roger, switch to tower control 118.4.
After reaching the runway threshold, control of the 727 passes from the ground controller to the tower controller.
Northwest 299, Metro Tower. Runway 3 center, clear for takeoff.
Suddenly, midway down the runway, the 727 encounters the unexpected. A DC-9 with 40 passengers on board. In its cockpit,
Oh, no.
there's nothing the pilots can do to prevent a collision.
Oh, God, oh, God!
Northwest 299 at boarding. There's an aircraft on the runway and we struck his right wing.
The 727's wing has sliced through the DC-9's fuselage. Inside the DC-9, there's chaos. Firefighters and emergency response teams rush to the scene. No one on the 727 is injured, but the same is not true of the DC-9.
The aircraft was virtually burned out. The passenger compartment was gutted.
The pilots of the DC-9 survived the collision, but 8 of the 44 people on board are killed. The DC-9 is identified as another Northwest Airlines plane, Flight 1482, bound for Pittsburgh. The National Transportation Safety Board launches an investigation into the accident.
727's wing sliced right through the fuselage.
We obviously knew what happened in a gross sense. Two aircraft came together and a tragic event occurred.
How did the DC-9 end up in the path of the oncoming 727? Investigators immediately suspect the thick fog played a major part in the accident.
Visibility was 3/4 of a mile an hour before the accident, but then it drops to a 1/4 mile.
Quarter mile is the minimum.
Did the DC-9 get lost in the fog on the way to the runway?
Visibility was at least 1/4 mile. That would allow operations to continue. Before the accident, every other aircraft that took off had no problem at all finding the end of the proper runway and departing. But our men in the DC-9 didn't do this.
Why did the DC-9 lose its way when other aircraft didn't? Investigators wonder if ground control is at fault.
I cleared them to use Oscar 6, Foxtrot, and X-ray to runway 3 center.
The ground controller tells investigators he gave the DC-9's crew, First Officer Jim Shiffens and Captain Bill Lovelace, specific instructions to get to the runway.
Northwest 1482, taxi to Oscar 6 to Foxtrot, report making the right turn on X-ray.
Oscar 6 to Foxtrot, report X-ray.
Beginning on taxiway Oscar 6, the aircraft was to take Foxtrot and then X-ray to the start of the runway.
Northwest 1482, what's your position now?
But when asked for an update on their progress,
We're headed eastbound on Oscar 6 here.
Eastbound on Oscar 6.
the crew's response didn't make sense.
They announced that they were eastbound on Oscar 6, which was an impossibility. It's a northwest-southeast oriented taxiway.
Okay, I think we might have missed Oscar 6. See a sign here that says the arrow's to Oscar 5.
The folks in the tower realized that the pilots in the DC-9 were probably becoming a little confused about where they were.
Instead of remaining straight on Oscar 6, the aircraft turned left and passed taxiway Oscar 5.
I realized they had made a wrong turn, so I gave them directions to get them back on track. Northwest 1482 at Oscar 4. Make the right turn onto X-ray, report crossing 927.
The DC-9 was then directed to continue straight to Oscar 4, turn right onto X-ray, cross inactive runway 927, and then follow X-ray back to the runway for takeoff.
Roger, at Oscar 4, make the right turn onto X-ray.
The DC-9 radioed back, okay, I understand, or something to that effect. And everybody calmed down and thought that they had straightened everything out.
But somehow, 5 minutes later, the DC-9 ended up on the active runway.
Somebody did something wrong.
Investigators need to find out who and why.
We hoped we would find out, why did you miss all this and wind up on an active runway?
Investigators interview the DC-9's crew, starting with Captain Bill Lovelace.
The captain was kind of a mild-mannered fellow. He loved to fly.
I wasn't familiar with the layout of the taxiways and runways.
He recently returned to flying after a 6-year medical leave and was unfamiliar with the airport in Detroit.
So I asked my first officer, where you been flying out of?
Memphis and Detroit.
Good. You can help me find my way around these taxiways here in Detroit.
I sure can.
First officer had bragged about his knowledge of the airport. That would have enhanced the likelihood that the captain would have trusted the first officer to help navigate in Detroit.
I thought, great, someone in the co-pilot seat who knows where he's going. But we still got lost somehow.
The NTSB next questions First Officer Jim Shiffens, a former military pilot who joined Northwest earlier that year.
He was a little brash, perhaps a little cocky. I wouldn't say a know-it-all, but he'd been around the horn.
Captain Lovelace misunderstood. What I meant was, I knew the procedures for pushing back from the gate, not the physical layout of the airport.
Investigators conclude the first officer, whether deliberately or not, misled the captain about his knowledge of the airport.
Our DC-9 crew was really not familiar with the Detroit airport. And then you bring in all the other things like low visibility, it all comes together to create a dangerous situation.
Still, investigators wonder how two professional pilots could become so dangerously lost.
Okay, let's see where they go. And let's confirm any directional changes with the FDR data.
To trace their route, investigators combine the plane's heading changes captured by the flight data recorder with the conversation recorded in the cockpit. Before the plane starts to taxi, the team hears something on the tape that gets their attention.
I've always flown with an ejection seat. I've used it twice.
At the departure gate, the first officer began to boast about his military service.
I got shot down once over Southeast Asia. I didn't have time to get scared.
Oh, is that right?
And then when I was flying T-38s one time, I had an engine fire. Tower controller said, "You were on fire, eject." Bam! Wow.
Wow.
At that time in the NTSB, a lot of us had military backgrounds. He and I were in the same place at nearly the same time, so my ears perked up.
Is he some kind of war hero?
Sounds like it.
To bail out or eject out of two different airplanes, no, that's very rare.
Investigators review the first officer's military record to verify his story.
Check this out. He's clearly embellishing.
It turns out that he didn't bail out of any aircraft at any time. We even have a phrase for that, stolen valor.
Why would he lie?
That's a good question.
The NTSB needs to know why First Officer Jim Chiffons lied to the captain about his military record, just minutes before Northwest 1482 strayed onto an active runway. Investigators check his employment record for an answer.
He was still on probation.
So he needed the captain to give him a good report.
I think the first officer was bragging to impress the captain because a bad mark would be tantamount to not getting a career with Northwest Airlines.
But did the first officer's boasting influence decision-making in the cockpit?
3 center, exit the ramp at Oscar 6. Did you get all that?
Yeah, but I'm going to need you to have it.
Kind of wind around here, and Oscar 6 is going to be right around the corner here.
Okay.
The CVR reveals that as the plane begins to taxi, the dynamic in the cockpit changed.
The first officer was correct in offering up help to the captain. This is just the way things should work.
Left turn or right turn?
Yeah, well, this is the inner taxiway here. We're still going for Oscar 6.
So, left turn?
Yeah.
First officer was kind of taking on a bit more responsibility, a bit more, and then he started to direct the taxi itself.
Seems like the first officer is calling the shots.
We're headed eastbound on Oscar 6 here.
Just as the controller said, you can't go east on Oscar 6. Oscar 6 runs north-south.
Northwest 1482 at Oscar 4. Take the right turn on X-ray. Report crossing 927.
As their predicament worsened,
So what do we do here?
You make the right turn, report crossing 27.
the captain became completely reliant on the first officer's guidance.
This role reversal was pretty total.
There's Oscar 4. This is X-ray.
Okay, so the last instruction was that Oscar 4 turn right onto X-ray.
Right, over here then. Yeah, that way.
I think we're on X-ray here now.
There is no way they're on X-ray.
They never make it onto X-ray.
The captain suddenly realized they missed the taxiway and were now on a runway.
What runway is this?
Turn left over there. No, wait, that's a runway 2.
They are totally disoriented.
Tell them we're out here, we're stuck. We can't see anything, but I
believe we're on a runway.
Somehow, they've made it here.
We've got two planes facing each other on the same runway. But there's signs and surface markings all along here. I don't get it.
When an aircraft gets lost on the airfield, usually the pilots will spot signs or something like that, help clarify the position in the controller's mind where the aircraft is exactly.
Investigators are baffled. Why didn't the airport's signs and runway markings prevent the pilots from getting lost? To better understand what happened,
Let's do this.
investigators retrace their route.
The only way to fix this in our minds was to perform what we call a taxi demonstration.
Wow. Will you look at that?
The team discovers that the yellow taxi markings were badly faded.
I could barely see it on a bright day.
It was obvious that if we got confused in broad daylight with no fog, perfect visibility, that the issue was more acute when you could barely see your hand in front of your face out there.
Investigators continue to the Oscar 4 intersection, where the DC-9 failed to make the critical right turn.
So which way is the Oscar 4 sign pointing? Right or straight ahead?
They discover that the signage at the intersection is confusing.
The only way for pilots to really be certain of where they are is to have unmistakable signs that offer pilots clear and readily interpretable information.
Investigators finally think they know what happened on the day of the collision.
Now, what runway is this? This is a runway.
A dysfunctional and disoriented DC-9 crew mistakenly taxied onto an active runway at the same time as the Boeing 727 was cleared for takeoff.
knots.
Oh, no.
God, oh, God!
In the aftermath of the crash, Detroit Metropolitan Airport improved signage and now uses highly visible reflective paint for all airfield markings.
Ground radar with audible and oral warnings as well to tell controllers of an impending collision is in place at most major airports at this point in time. That's gone a long ways to preventing actual collisions from happening.
The high volume of daily air traffic poses a constant challenge for both pilots and controllers. It can become overwhelming with devastating consequences. It's just before sunset on America's west coast. US Air Flight 1493 out of Columbus, Ohio, cruises towards Los Angeles International Airport. There are 89 passengers and 6 crew on board the Boeing 737.
Just confirm the visual approach for US Air 1493 is 24 left.
That's correct, US Air 1493.
48-year-old Captain Colin Shaw has logged more than 16,000 flying hours. First Officer David Kelly is 32, with 4,300 hours of flying experience. In the control tower,
246 heading 270, contact Los Angeles departure. Good night.
Robin Washer is handling 2 runways, including runway 24 left. Like all controllers, she uses flight strips to keep track of all planes arriving and departing.
Skywest 569, taxi to position hold, runway 24 left.
Traffic will cross downfield.
Roger.
8 miles from LAX, the pilots radio for landing instructions.
US Air 1493, inside Rome.
But there's no response. Washer is busy with other planes on the ground.
Sundance 518, taxi across runway 24 left.
Contact ground point 65 when you're off the runway.
Flight 1493 can't land until it receives washer's clearance.
US Air 1493 for the left side. 24 left.
The 737 is only 1 minute from the runway.
Out of 1,000 feet.
Thank you, US Air 1493. You're cleared to land. 24 left.
Cleared to land, 24 left. 1493. Looks real good.
What the hell?
US Air 1493 bursts into flames upon landing at LAX. It skids across the tarmac and slams into an abandoned building. Firefighters hurry to the scene. 20 people on the flight are dead. 2 more will succumb to their injuries in the days that follow. As rescue efforts continue, a shocking discovery is made. Firefighters pull a propeller from the wreckage.
As soon as we found out that information, we started actively looking to see what aircraft, if any, were missing. So we started looking at the flight strips that were already departed, and then we looked at the ones that were still pending.
What about SkyWest 569?
No, we haven't heard from them.
SkyWest 569, a 19-seat twin-engine plane bound for Palmdale, California, isn't responding to radio calls. Emergency crews eventually find the wrecked commuter plane beneath the 737.
It was a horrific scene. The front end of the airplane was impaled against the building. We could see parts of another aircraft underneath.
There were 12 people on board. Rescuers find no survivors. The National Transportation Safety Board dispatches a team of investigators to LAX.
The scenario of the accident resulted in 2 planes being on the runway at the same time. The runway was occupied, and that's something that should never happen when a landing clearance is granted.
Which one of these planes was cleared for 24 left?
Recordings of Robin Washer's communications in the tower might provide an answer.
SkyWest 569, taxi up and hold short of runway 24 left.
Roger, hold short.
Moments before the accident, Washer was prepping the SkyWest commuter plane for takeoff.
SkyWest 569, taxi into position and hold runway 24 left.
Traffic will be crossing downfield.
The pilots, as instructed, taxied to takeoff position and stopped so that Washer could clear a 3rd aircraft to taxi across the runway in front of them.
Okay, 24 left, position and hold. SkyWest 569.
Okay. Stop right there.
SkyWest 569 followed Washer's directions.
All right, let's keep going.
Wings west 5006, taxi across runway 24 left.
Next, Washer instructs the plane in front of SkyWest 569 to cross the runway.
Wings west 5006, taxi across runway 24 left.
But there's no response from that plane.
Wings west 5006, ground, tower.
It takes nearly a minute for Washer to re-establish radio contact.
Wings west 5006, on frequency again. Change radios, sorry about that.
They advised her they had inadvertently been on another frequency.
5006, you're back with me.
Yeah, we didn't mean to switch radios. We're on now.
And that created a distraction for the local controller.
And that's when US Air Flight 1493, still a minute from touchdown, requests clearance to land.
US Air 1493 for the left side, 24 left.
Thank you, US Air 1493. You're cleared to land 24 left.
A U.S. Air 1493 was cleared to land on the same runway during the time that SkyWest 569 was still sitting in position on that same runway.
Cleared to land, 24 left.
1493.
It's a mistake that cost 34 lives. The team now needs to find out from Robin Washer what went wrong.
I couldn't find the flight progress strip.
Washer explains that as SkyWest 569 waited on the runway for permission to take off, she was distracted by a third plane requesting clearance to depart.
Tower Wings West 5072 is ready for takeoff.
Wings was 5072. I need a strip for Wings was 5072. I couldn't find the strip, so I asked my supervisor to help me.
While Washer looked for the strip for Flight 5072, she forgot she had already moved SkyWest 569 onto the runway.
US Air 1493 for the left side.
And then she cleared Flight 1493 to land.
Thank you, US Air 1493. You're cleared to land. 24 left.
What the hell?
This is a situation that no controller wants to go through. You train your whole career for this not to happen.
But the NTSB isn't ready to close the case of the LAX collision yet.
Anytime that you do an investigation, it's easy to point the blame at one individual. What you want to do is to say, why did this occur, and what can we do to prevent a reoccurrence?
Documents provided by LAX air traffic controllers have revealed that the tower was understaffed in the months before the deadly collision on runway 24 left. And that some sections of the runway are invisible to controllers.
We went up in the tower and asked the air traffic controllers to step aside while we sat in their chairs and looked out the window. The view that the air traffic controller was presented with had an obstruction, a light pole that produced a glare.
The investigation also discovers that ground radar systems used to track planes while taxiing weren't operational on the day of the accident.
You're holding short, is that correct, sir?
Yes, ma'am, we're holding short.
It was in constant out of service, in service, out of service, in service, and gave the management a lot of trouble.
Los Angeles Airport has always been known as one of the #1 runway incursion airports in the system, and changes were overdue.
In the months and years following the accident, improvements are made to air traffic facilities to make the airport a safer place.
The equipment we're using at Los Angeles Tower today gives the controllers the tools they need to make sure that the runways are clear.
Without those safety measures in place, Robin Washer was able to lose track of the situation, something that should never happen in a control tower. Linate Airport, Milan, Italy. It's just after 8 a.m. The runways and taxiways are shrouded in a dense fog similar to that which covered Detroit Airport 11 years earlier.
Alitalia 226, cleared for takeoff, 36, report when rolling.
Even so, planes take off every 2 minutes.
Linate Buongiorno, Delta, India, Echo, Victor X-ray. Requesting startup.
Delta, Victor X-ray, you are cleared to start your engines.
Paolo Zacchetti is the ground controller responsible for guiding flights to the start of the runway.
Taxi north via Romeo 5. Call me back at the stop bar of the main runway extension. Scandinavian 686, taxi to holding position, Cat 3.
Scandinavian 686, taxi to holding position, Cat 3.
On the way to the runway is Scandinavian Airlines Flight 686, a Boeing MD-87 bound for Copenhagen, with 110 people on board.
Taxi holding point Cap 3.
The captain is Joachim Gustafsson. He has been with SAS for more than a decade.
Scandinavian 686, your position, please.
We still haven't reached the main taxiway, Scandinavian 686.
First Officer Anders Highlander has been flying for the airline for the past 4 years.
The SAS crew were very highly experienced pilots, so couldn't ask more for 2 qualified pilots.
In such thick fog, the pilots rely on Zacchetti to guide them to the runway.
Scandinavian 686, your position, please.
Now you're on the main taxiway.
Yes, now we are entering the main taxiway, Scandinavian 686.
Flight 686 turns off the taxiway and onto the runway. Zacchetti hands the flight off to the tower controller.
Tower, buongiorno, Scandinavian 686, sequence to 36 right.
Ciao, Scandinavian 686. The wind is calm. Report rolling. When airborne, squawk ident.
The flight is cleared for takeoff at 8:09 a.m.
And we are rolling, Scandinavian 686.
Auto throttle on. Set thrust.
V1. Rotate.
Scandinavian Airlines Flight 686 has been struck by catastrophe. But because of the thick fog, no one is aware of it. Until a severely burned baggage handler emerges from the fog.
And we want to know what happened on the runway.
10 tons of jet fuel feed a massive fire where the Boeing MD-87 has collided with one of Linate Airport's hangars.
Awful, terrible devastation. The collapse of a roof of the hangar and the saucer plane completely destroyed.
While emergency crews battle the fire,
There are 2 aircraft unaccounted for.
ground controller Paolo Zacchetti realizes a 4-seat Cessna Citation is unaccounted for.
The main attention was focused on the saucer plane, and so nobody thought that there was another plane.
A private aircraft is missing, a Cessna 525.
Ground crews immediately organize a search. 26 minutes after the crash, they find what's left of the Cessna midway down the runway where the accident occurred. The disaster has claimed the lives of all 110 people on the MD-87, along with 4 on board the Cessna. 4 more were killed inside the hangar.
This is the most serious accident in the history in Italy.
My God.
Mario Pica is the lead investigator for Italy's National Agency for Flight Safety, the ANSV.
It was mandatory to find out really what happened and find the reasons that could help us to avoid it happening again.
The Swedish Accident Investigation Board also sends a team to Milan.
We were called to be part of the investigation as it was in the Scandinavian Airlines plane.
Here's what we know so far. The MD-87.
Measuring the distance, we ascertained that the MD-87 had traveled for about 40 seconds and gone 1,500 meters before striking the Cessna.
Here.
Did the SAS pilots have any warning that another plane was on the runway?
Weather.
Weather reports show visibility was only 160 feet at the time of the collision.
V1. Rotate.
That means SAS pilots wouldn't have been able to see the Cessna until just before impact.
What's that?
With the heavy fog of that morning, it was clear that the environmental factor was a contributing cause of the event.
But modern airports like Linate operate safely in low visibility every day.
Planes can avoid each other at night, so why should it be any difference in fog?
What went wrong the morning of the accident?
We have to consider this right off the bat.
One of the first thoughts that came to mind was
pilot error.
The possibility of a pilot error.
One of the pilots was not where he was supposed to be. The question is, which one? Investigators turn to control tower recordings for answers.
We had to listen to the facts. Our expectation was that the ATC recording would reveal what actually was being said that morning.
They pay close attention to ground controller Paolo Zacchetti's conversations with the Cessna, call sign Delta Victor X-ray.
Delta Victor X-ray, taxi north via Romeo 5. Call me back at the stop bar of the main runway extension.
Roger, via Romeo 5. Call you back before reaching main runway.
Zacchetti instructed the Cessna to go north from the apron along taxiway Romeo 5 to a taxiway that runs parallel to runway 36R. The route should have kept the Cessna off the runway.
But he ended up here instead.
Investigators make a shocking discovery.
The Cessna didn't follow the taxiway Romeo 5 for which it had been authorized, but took instead taxiway Romeo 6.
It seems that the Cessna pilots made the fatal error that caused the crash.
Call you back before reaching main runway.
But the revelation raises an important question.
So why didn't anyone notice?
It's ground control's job to monitor the movement of all aircraft across the airport. That morning, it was Paolo Zacchetti's responsibility.
Delta Victor X-ray, continue your taxi on the main apron.
Roger, continue to taxi on main apron, Delta Victor X-ray.
That is correct, and please call me back entering the main taxiway.
Main apron? Main taxiway?
But Linate Airport has several aprons and taxiways, none of them designated as main. Investigators now want to know how Zacchetti lost track of the Cessna. Air traffic control recordings reveal that Paolo Zacchetti failed to clearly differentiate aprons from taxiways when giving directions to the Cessna that collided with an MD-87.
Please call me back entering the main taxiway.
The communication with the tower and the pilots that morning of the accident was inconsistent. They used the word main for different things. Main runway, main apron, main taxiway.
The controller's choice of words may have led the Cessna pilots to believe they were on the correct route.
That was a communication below acceptable standard.
Play that again.
Investigators also hear a transmission from the Cessna.
Approaching Sierra 4.
That puzzles them further.
I don't see it anywhere.
It's not here.
Listening to the communications, I was baffled when I heard pilot reporting a Sierra 4.
The controller's maps don't show S4 at all. Investigators are beginning to suspect the error goes beyond the poor communications between Zacchetti and the Cessna's pilot.
I asked him if he knew where Sierra 4 was.
Where is Sierra 4? I have no idea.
That was very simple. He confessed he didn't know where Sierra 4 was.
Pica learns that Zacchetti's managers never gave him a tour of the taxiways as part of his training.
Approaching Sierra 4.
Delta, Victor, X-ray. Roger. Maintain the stop bar. I'll call you back.
Had he received proper training, Zacchetti would have realized the Cessna wasn't on taxiway Romeo 5 as instructed. It was instead on Romeo 6 and about to cross the active runway.
Air traffic controller didn't stop the Cessna.
Delta, Victor, X-ray.
And at that moment, the tower clears the MD-87 for takeoff.
Scandinavian 686 Linate, cleared for takeoff.
Delta, Victor, X-ray. Continue your taxi on the main apron.
He should have stopped the Cessna, but unfortunately...
Roger, continues the taxi on main apron.
He thought that the Cessna was on R5 taxiway.
It's a fatal series of errors.
And we are rolling, Scandinavian 686.
Just as the MD-87 reaches a speed of 145 knots, or 160 miles per hour, the Cessna crosses the runway. Investigators now have a picture of the events leading up to the disaster. But they still wonder, why didn't taxiway direction signs alert the Cessna pilots that they were heading in the wrong direction? The team looks at guidance signs at Linate Airport that are supposed to help guide the pilots.
The status of those markings were in a very poor condition. It was surrounded by high grass, and there was only a very few of those markings.
The markings painted directly onto the tarmac are also vital for pilots.
When we came to the intersection between Romeo 5 and Romeo 6, we could see that the markings on the ground were so badly painted that even in good visibility it was difficult to read them.
The faded markings help to explain why the Cessna turned right, when to avoid the runway it should have turned left. But investigators know Linate Airport should have yet another tool to prevent this kind of disaster. Ground radar that can detect the movement of all aircraft and vehicles on the surface of an airport.
Delta, Victor, X-ray. Confirm your position?
But when the team talks to controllers...
No. There is no ground radar at Linate. We have not had it in years.
They discover another deficiency at Linate.
The ground radar of Linate, the old one was dismantled, the new one was in boxes, had been there for years and not yet installed. Why? I don't know.
Everything which could go wrong did go wrong at that airport.
In the aftermath, Linate underwent a major overhaul to improve safety.
Alitalia 212, hold your position. You are crossing an active runway. Repeat, hold your position. Alitalia 212.
God, oh God!
Changes brought in after 3 catastrophic runway collisions
What the hell?
have made the chance of a runway disaster far less likely.
What's that?
Right now, air traffic controllers have a tremendous amount of resources available to them versus what they did even 10, 20 years ago. And I think the safety record that we have in the industry shows their abilities. The air traffic control world has grown so much for the better.